Marriage is work, people. It's work. And it's not always fun work,
right.
But it's worth it. It's work that has worth.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it has value. And that's what we really love to bring out in these podcast shows.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Stephen and Corey and Get It Together. What? Together. Hey, I'm Stephen
and I am Corey, and we are so happy that you're with us this evening or
absolutely.
This daytime. For us, it's evening, guys. And we are just thrilled to have, remember we promised them.
Yes, right.
We promised you guys that we would
That's
have
right.
guests.
Yeah.
Guests that have something to say. And you guys have told us, these are really great. I love these. So we got a great one for you today.
And most important is always a great story.
Yeah, that's what the great one is.
Stories,
it is.
Right?
It is.
Yeah. By the way, I've been hanging out with this girl now for 43 years. Okay, so we've known each other for what?
Well, hold
43
on.
years.
We met each other. We didn't like each other. And then we decided to date.
Yeah.
And then we got engaged like within 9 months. And then we got engaged on Labor Day and got married in October. No, November. Sorry.
Yeah,
November.
right,
we got married in November of the same year.
Clean it up.
I know.
Clean it up, Corey. All right.
You know, it just feels like forever with him. Anyway, back to our show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have this great couple on tonight, and we've known them for quite a while. Actually, you know, we got to know the husband before we got to know the wife.
Yes.
But that was the bonus. The wife is the bonus. You know, they always say that's the good stuff.
That's
the
right.
wife is the good stuff, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we got to know them, he was speaking at an event that we were at, and he was part of the team also.
Yeah.
But what was really cool is that he was...
He has a way of interconnecting with the audience.
He wasn't, you know, some speakers are like, I'm the speaker, nice to meet you. No, he was like, hey guys, how you doing? Yeah. And his wife, same.
Yeah,
so we want to introduce you to them. Do you want to read a little bit of their bio?
Certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Todd and Carla Falcone. It says their journey began over 3 decades ago, and it's one filled with love, challenges, and triumphs. After dating for nearly 4 years in the late 90s, they married. 7 years.
And they've been married for how many years? 28.
28.
Go ahead.
So together for 32, right? Mm-hmm. 7 years into their marriage, they were blessed with their first son. We were married for, 5 years before we had ours. That's interesting.
We like to do it that way. That was good.
So followed by a second, just 27 months later. In juggling the demand of careers and raising a family, they found themselves surviving rather than thriving. The story goes on more and more, but you're going to hear it directly from them.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Todd and Carla.
Hey. Fireworks, confetti.
That's right. That's right.
So Todd and Carla, welcome to Get It Together. And the reason why we do this podcast is because couples need to hear from you.
That's right.
How you get it together here and together.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about that 7 years and then a baby. Were you planning the baby?
Well, but first, we like to hear from you guys how you met.
Yes,
There's always 2 stories and then the right story.
Carla, you go first. You'll get the right story.
Well, you know what? Todd has told this story numerous times on stages all over the world. So can I let Todd tell the story? Because he's got it down pat.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Oh, boy. So, all right. So I'll tell you the story. So I was in a business for 2 years, had to move home and live in the bunk beds at the parents' house because I ran out of money. And I took a job as an account executive at their radio station. And Carla happened to work for an advertising agency. And I was single at the time. And there was 3 women there, Carla, Martha, and Kathy, who I was like, you know, when you're on the phone, you're like kind of flirty. And then went out to a visit at the agency. And I think Kathy or Martha had 5 kids. The other one, don't think I was interested. And then Carla comes bopping in and she was about my age and looked good. And I was like, ooh, who's that? And I was like, okay, now I know who I could flirt with. And so, I don't know, it was like 6 months later or something. She was like, oh, I'm thinking about moving to Jackson Hole or maybe Monterey. And so I put together a care package of the yellow pages and this manila envelope that I sent to her because I knew all the ad agencies and all the companies there. So I put this care package together, sent it off to her. And then we started having little conversations at night, late, after work. And we were doing that for probably 3 or 4 months, getting to know each other. And then I said, hey, do you want to go to a Grateful Dead show with me? And she's like, and I said, I'm only going to ask once. And she's like, okay. And so our first date was December 18th, 1993 at the Grateful Dead Oakland Coliseum. Took her to her first Dead show. And then I spent New Year's with her. We've been together ever since. And yeah, it's
Now,
been,
wait a minute. Now, she was living where, Carla?
she was
Where
in
were you
Fresno.
living? Oh, okay. But you put her here with her care package because she was moving.
She was thinking about moving from Fresno to Monterey. And then, I don't know,
Okay.
what was it, baby? 4 months later you moved there? Something like that?
Okay, so it wasn't too far from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Not bad.
And here we
Long
are,
distance
32 years later.
32 years later. So how long was it before you actually proposed?
I'm sorry, honey. I proposed to her live on the radio. So interesting proposal. I had my morning disc jockey call her in her office. She worked for a public relations firm, and she's like, "Hey," he's like, "Can I put you on the air?" And she's like, "Yeah, I guess." And she's like, "I got somebody who wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Hey, baby." And I was on a foot-long cell phone, one of those giant ones, holding it. And I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" She's like, "Good. What's going on?" I said, "Well, I wanted to walk in here into your office." And I'm walking in as I'm describing what I'm doing, and I wanted to come in here and I wanted to get down on my knee and ask you to marry me. And I don't even think she said yes. I think she went, and I'm like, was that a yes? And you did say yes, right? You said yes. So
Yeah, I barely said yes because I was in shock and crying, and the whole office followed Todd, and I was on the radio, and there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
So did the office, did they know? So Todd, they knew what you were going to do?
nobody knew what was going on.
No.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a surprise.
Me and the morning DJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so Carla, you got to encapsulate those feelings. What was going on with you at that time?
At the proposal time?
Yes.
Yeah, I was in shock. Well, not shock. That's too strong of a word. It's probably a negative connotation. I was just surprised. I was not expecting it. And I was happy and really elated. I would say elated in the moment, especially after the moment. I remember I had a meeting with a client shortly thereafter. Todd put the ring on my finger. We hugged, we kissed. Everybody said congratulations. I hung up the phone with the DJ and my client walked in. I had to go into a meeting. It was surreal.
Hi, I just got engaged.
Yeah.
Live.
Yes.
What's interesting is it'll be neat to hear you guys stitch this together, but I'm just curious about how much of that scenario embodies the story of your relationship, of all these kind of things like this.
Well, I'm definitely the one that's very impromptu. I'm like, hey, let's take off and let's go do this. And she's like, what? Like that time we went camping, we were with Gianni, and we were camping out for a week or 4 days, 5 days. We came home, we did laundry. I'm like, I'm not ready to go back to work. Let's go again. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, let's just, repack and we'll go. So we were home long enough to do laundry, and then we camped out for another week up in the San Juan Islands.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So Carla likes that adventure, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
I do. I think that an easy way to summarize that is I was raised to be a rule follower, but I didn't really want to be a rule follower, but I didn't have the guts to break out. And so Todd is the one that doesn't follow the rules, and he's very spontaneous and gives me permission to...
He said, I'm just going with him.
Yeah, yeah. So it's fun and it's exciting, and it gets me out of my comfort zone, which always feels exhilarating.
Now, let's go back to when you met, and he said, okay, that's the one I can flirt with. What was your reaction? Were you like, ooh, hubba, hubba? Or were you like, okay, hi?
I remember it like it was yesterday, him walking into the office. I didn't know he was going to be there, but we had talked on the phone just purely for business purposes. And I remember him walking in. I remember exactly what he was wearing. He just had this dynamic energy, and I was drawn to him. And when he called me and reached out to me and said, can I get your number? Because at the time, there were no cell phones, right? So he said, can I have your home number? And I was excited.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Excited to see where it was going to go.
Yeah. Now, what had you said before to your folks? Had you explained anything about him and who he was and et cetera?
Yeah.
All right, come clean. Let us hear it.
Well,
That's one.
I don't think I said anything to my parents, and I've got two strict parents, a strong Christian family, and we went out on our first date, and I saw my parents shortly thereafter because it was Christmas time. And I said, I went out with this guy, and there's something about him. And I remember, and they were like, well, who is he? And tell us a little bit about him. And I said, well, his parents own a radio station. And my dad said, marry him. Because he just saw dollar signs, right? Yeah. He just made an assumption there.
No, he looked at your mom and went, check, that one's gone.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Wow. And meanwhile, Mom, what's Mom saying?
Oh, my mom and Todd have a very special relationship, and I think they have since the very beginning, Todd, would you say?
Yeah,
They,
she's an angel.
yeah, they just adore
Yeah.
each other. So it's a really sweet relationship.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
My dad and Todd, I think there's a little jealousy there. I'm daddy's only girl, and so I think there's a little something there that has always remained. So yeah,
It's okay.
which is
It's okay
understandable.
because that's a dad.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Todd, your parents?
My parents, my mom passed away April 20th of 20. She was a Sicilian firecracker. My mom was super edgy and fun. You know, my parents unfortunately got divorced a couple times actually when I was younger. And my mom married my stepdad who actually at the time when they met, he was a general manager of a radio station in Washington. You know, they got married. They were married until she passed away, but they were super supportive and yeah, they were all in. So it was,
And when they met Carla?
oh, they love Carla. Absolutely.
Who doesn't
Yeah.
love Carla?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
I mean,
Todd's mom was a big personality, and that was something to get used to for me. But she and I had a great relationship. And it's interesting, Todd's dad, his biological dad, lives and is remarried and lives in Washington. And when Todd took me to Washington to meet his dad and that family and siblings and cousins and aunts and uncles, they're Italian. So everybody speaks at the same time. Everybody's talking over one another. There's maybe some yelling, and then you forget that you yelled, and it doesn't matter. And my family's German, so you don't show emotions. So it was very different. Yeah.
That was shocking for you then, yeah.
Yes.
But a warm, big, welcoming way, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. So we talked about how you guys met and the proposal. So was it a plan to wait 7 years, or was it a struggle to have children, or what's your oldest, what's his name?
Gianni.
Gianni.
Oh, beautiful. Wow.
Well, that's Italian.
Yeah.
after
Yes.
our favorite pizza joint. I get free pizza there. We get free pizza there for life, and I'm sure he's very happy we don't live there anymore. So
However, the owner of Gianni's Pizza will not give me the recipe for my favorite pizza.
Of course not.
man.
Of course
Even though we named our firstborn child after his restaurant.
He's like, you're not getting my secret sauce.
it's good pizza, though. If you're ever in Monterey,
how did you-
California, go to
Yeah,
Gianni's. Yeah.
not. How did Gianni come along? Was it a surprise or planned?
So when we first got married, I remember telling Todd, I don't know if it was before we got married, probably, because we dated for 4 years. I told him I don't think I want to have children. I was really interested in growing my career and really enjoying just that phase of my life, and I wanted to see where I was going to go, and I had lots of hopes and dreams to build that. And Todd was great with it. He was like, you know what? If we don't have kids, that's okay. If we do have kids, it's okay. He seemed to be very just in the middle. And then, what was it? Probably 5 years into our relationship, all my friends were having kids. And I had a very specific moment where a girlfriend had a son, and the connection that I had with him was so moving. And I realized I want this in my life. I don't have this in my life, and I want this in my life. I want this in our lives. So I went to Todd in tears saying, I think I want to have kids. He's like, oh, okay. And I'm crying, but I don't want to have kids. Okay, but I do want to have kids. And I remember Todd saying,
Make up your mind.
I don't know how to answer this question, but whatever you want, we'll go with it.
That's really beautiful.
That is.
It is because,
Yeah.
the thing is, once you're 5 years in, you've got patterns. You're, off the cuff. You can go in an instant, that kind of thing. Normally people make it to 5. It's like, that's, wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So how do you define that? Do you think that was there something spiritual to that or what? I mean, that's very interesting.
I mean, I was just enjoying being with Carla, being married to Carla, and having a good time. And we were experiencing life and doing all sorts of fun things. And I was game from the beginning I wasn't in a rush. Obviously, it's funny. You're like, oh, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? Because we waited. I was like, people kept asking, when are you having kids? And I was like, as soon as we get back from Chicago. And they're like, oh, when are you going to Chicago? I'm like, we don't have any plans. Just to shut him up. I was like, okay, because it's, how it is. Like, oh, when are you doing this? And I was just like, go with the flow, man. When we started working on it, eventually that happened. I don't think it took that long, actually. And, we had Gianni. And then I think we were pretty confident. You know how my memory is. So I was pretty confident that we wanted to have at least one more so that, have a little buddy to hang out with. And so Joey came along 27 months later.
So, Carla, for you, like Stephen was saying, when you spent time with your friend's son, was that what kind of moment was that when you're like, I want this? Because listen to us people out there, married couples out there, you can have friends who have children and you can just be that aunt, that quote unquote aunt or that second mom or the friend. So something there happened, Carla, where you're like, I want something deeper than that. What was that?
That's good.
Yeah, I actually did. You're right on. I had a moment, and we were at her house standing in the kitchen, and he was probably 2 or 3 years old. He ran up to me and just grabbed my legs and just embraced me. And he looked up and he was like, oh, and he thought he was embracing his mom. And when he saw it was Aunt Carla, he let go and ran off. And that embrace, it traveled through my body. And I thought, I have never felt a love like this. And that's what I felt. And I knew it was missing and I wanted it.
Wow. That's beautiful. I knew there was something there. Thank you for sharing that because that does happen. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. So now you have 2 little boys that are 27 months apart, and you get to be the stay-at-home mom, the Saham.
But hold on, you were busy building your career.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened, honey?
Well, I dropped out of my career.
No, you shift careers.
Shifted careers.
I did. I shifted.
You put that career
shifted. I
energy
happily
into
shifted,
raising children.
Did you consciously say, I can't do this? I can't do all of this. It's like...
Or if I do them both, I'm not giving them both 100%. What was your thought there? We shouldn't ask.
Right. So I tried to juggle. Probably about 5 years, I was juggling the kids and career. And I actually had my own business at the time. And we had a nanny come to the house because personally for me, I tried daycare and it was just so hard for me to drop off the boys. So we brought in a nanny. And for about 5 years, I was working my business, but the business was growing, which was great. But that meant more time away from the kids. And it was just eating me up. And I went to Todd and said, I'm not happy. I don't want to do this. And he supported me with leaving the company. And I sold my shares and just completely retired. Never looked back.
But the beautiful thing is you had a chance to do both.
Yeah. Right.
You had a chance to get out there and do that with yourself, because when you're building your business, it's you yourself. And then you had the opportunity to build something with Todd, with your family, with your children, and make a heritage. There's a scripture that says, children are a heritage of the Lord.
Yeah.
The fruit of your womb is his reward, and so you and Todd are building a heritage. That is, nothing else describes that. You can go out there and run many businesses and be what the world would say successful. But when you look at your sons and you say, that's success.
Yeah.
We did that.
And the world needs to see that.
Yeah.
There's so many people that do not understand what a functional home is.
Yeah, and so many children, so many young adults who wish they had you guys as parents.
Right.
So bravo for you on that.
Yeah. Now, with that decision, though, Todd, so some things came along whereby her salary or income was disappearing. So were you already working on kind of like building up enough so that you could support that? Or
was it
how
already
did it
there?
change for you?
Yeah, well, when we first met, we met at a time, I'd been 2 years as an entrepreneur, kind of didn't make it. Family business for a little while. The family business sold. And in the middle of that, I still went back into direct selling. So I was involved in the network marketing space. I was doing well. So the truth is, like, when she quit her job, we didn't need the extra income. So it was like an easy no-brainer. The income was already there, and I would have rather had her with the kids than, nanny, daycare, whatever. I would rather have her and us spend the time together. My business has always been working from home. So my kids have never known a father that's had to get up and go to work. I'll never forget a day we were living in Sammamish and I was playing basketball with Gianni. I think he was probably 6 or something, 7. And we're shooting baskets at like 7:30 in the morning and all these cars are buzzing out of the neighborhood. He's like, Dad, where's everybody going? I'm like, oh, buddy, they're going to work. He's like, oh, they don't work at home? And I'm like, no, man. I go, most of them get up, they take a shower, get dressed, go to work for 8 or 10 hours, and they come home for dinner. He's like, oh, I like what you do. I'm like, yeah, me too. So, it's been a blessing. I think that has a lot to do with our, family. We got a very tight family unit. Like, we genuinely love each other, get along, enjoy hanging out with one another. I'm not in any rush to like kick them out of the house. I mean, they're still both here. One's 18, one's 20. They're both going to probably go to University of Oregon this year. But, it's been incredible.
Can you expand on that a little bit, Todd? Because it's almost like you guys are just doing this vicariously, but I know there must be some goals. There had to be a dream and a vision either you or both of you guys had together. Just talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I guess from a family perspective, I come from a fairly dysfunctional family. And, I wanted to be like a chain breaker. Like my dad, it's not my father's fault, but like my father's father, my grandfather, I think maybe met once or twice. He was never around and he abandoned his family. And my father doesn't really have this ability to communicate or show love, affection. And my mom was the opposite. Like my mom said, I love you every day. Give me a hug, give me a kiss. And so both very different. And so I just knew I wanted to have a loving family, a family that could clearly, openly communicate with one another. And so I don't know that I had these I didn't have any family written down goals, if you will. I just wanted to have a happy family, like happy, healthy kids. Like when your kid comes out, you're like, I just want my kid to be healthy. And then of course, the things that we wish for our children is that, they have a great life and they have happiness and abundance and all those things, great friends. And so I've always wanted to create an environment where those kids could thrive. And I think the fact that Carla and I truly love each other and like each other and enjoy hanging out, I mean, that's evident in, just how we are as a family and how both of our kids are.
That's so awesome that you mentioned love and like each other. This whole notion of liking each other is a really, really important thing. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I was going to say what has happened is your children see it, like you just said. They just see it. And what child wants to leave that? That's the beauty of it. Of course, like our children live down the street from us. We literally moved to the state that our oldest was in, and the youngest said, I want to go too. And we all moved to Florida to be with her because we're close. So we love that. We love when families are close.
Right.
Those are the couples that we love to interview also because it teaches other couples out there that you can have that. Even though right now in this world system, this society, children are yelling or they're mad or they're protesting or they're talking terrible about their parents. No, that's not the norm. The norm is what you see. What you see here between these two couples, you can do that.
Yeah.
And all it takes, like you just said, Todd, love and like. Your kids want to see that.
Yeah.
They don't want to see bickering, and that's what makes them, I think, a lot of times flee because they're like, I can do better on my own, But the beauty that you have there is indicative of your children being with you and probably wanting to build that themselves one day, saying, you know what, I've seen it done.
Yeah, exactly. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, we're on with Todd and Carla Falcone, a wonderful, wonderful couple. The story's phenomenal. And we're going to continue and move to the next area about communication. Communication is generally the foundation stone, I guess, is what you would say. The cornerstone of relationships. Yeah. So let's talk about, in the Falcone marriage, who's the communicator and who is, I guess, what would be the difference?
The listener.
Yeah. Normally there's one that's really the driver in communication and the other one is kind of pulling along. So let's talk about that with you guys.
Who's who?
Go ahead, Carla.
Who's who? I feel like we both are communicators.
Really?
But I think I had to learn that over the years. I would hold back feelings, emotions, and then kind of erupt like a volcano. And I would shove it down or hold it in and hold it back until it had to come out. And I had to learn how to communicate and learn how to show my feelings. And it's something that I was very purposeful in building those skills.
That's important.
So was that cultural when you think about that in terms of your family?
Absolutely. Yes. That's what I learned. That's why I knew it wasn't working. And actually it created turmoil in I don't know if that created turmoil in our relationship, but it contributed to some turmoil back when the boys were young. Wouldn't you say, Todd?
Yeah. And I think communication is obviously crucial in a relationship, even in and out of marriage, like clear, open communication. And I mean, hey, what's wrong? Nothing. It's like, really? Okay. No, I can tell nothing's wrong, right? So I don't want to talk about it, right? So over the years, we've gotten way better at that. I mean, we all have our flaws and struggles that we have individually. And then, I mean, we've never been big fighters. Like, we don't really argue that much. I mean, of course, every couple gets mad at each other, but, we always get it resolved. And we've learned to, if we have something like let's say alcohol, I go out and have a couple glasses of wine. We don't have like serious conversations if there's alcohol involved. You get a little buzz or something and you're like, it's the wrong time to have that conversation.
Okay, stop there. How did you know to do that, Todd?
Well, because we've had them blow up. We're having conversations and both, both of us have a little buzz on.
So you've learned to shift.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But that's something that you were aware of. Congratulations, by the way, because there's a lot of people out there, and we actually had a show regarding that because people, they just think they can drink and yell and then get over it afterwards. There's scars that happen, or there's wounds that can turn into scars, So good on you on that. So you learn by default or by error. You learn by
an
error.
For sure. I just think, if it's not working the way we're doing it, let's do it in a little bit different way. And, I went into this marriage like I want to be married. Like I come from divorced household and was not a great representation of what a good marriage is. And I didn't have like the upbringing, like this is a great example of a good marriage. Well, I don't think I know, like our kids see, an example of what a good marriage is. Is it perfect? Are we like perfect? Of course, nobody's perfect, but like we've been a good example for them in whatever they do in their life. And that's obviously what we want to do as parents, is be a good example. I mean, we probably haven't been the greatest example in everything, but most certainly our unit, our household I'm proud of our household and what we've created as a family. And a lot of that has to do with communication, but we had to learn. You had to learn over the years, like, okay, this isn't working. Whether it's communicating each, needs, because everybody's got needs, whether it's like, I need you to hug me or let me know that you love me or whatever it is, whatever that person's love language is. And that's something that we had to discover through experience, because you could be together 5, 6, 7 years and you still really don't clearly know what that person wants unless it's clearly communicated. So I think that was probably one of our biggest breakthroughs in our relationship, and why we are where we are today is we've learned to really understand each other and be able to effectively communicate that. And the recipient of that message and the communicator of that message, both of them, it's open communication and an open receiver.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. And so, Carla, within the context of this, when did you recognize that there were issues? And did Todd know all along that you were pressing things down? Or how did that all evolve?
I think the boys were younger, preschool ages, and we weren't jiving. Like we were doing our own thing. The four of us were living in the same house, but Todd had his business. At that time, I had my business. The boys were young, so I'm also juggling, taking care of the boys. Todd's taking care of the boys too, but he's working a lot more and his income is the one that's supporting us. So I'm taking on the role of parenting more. And then there's resentment, but I'm not telling them that there's resentment, but I'm showing in my actions. And I had someone tell me, you have to communicate. You have to start talking to one another. And Todd and I actually had conversations like, how do we want this to work? Let's talk about our roles so that we can get rid of this resentment, remove that from the relationship. And we just started communicating. And I know for me, came out a little sideways because it was a new skill. So it felt uncomfortable and sometimes it wasn't pretty. I could have worded things better, but I've learned over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just like walking. You got to do it and stumble a couple of times, but eventually you become a sprinter.
Oh, yeah.
Or a marathon runner. Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're right. I think we all can get to a point where we hold something, whether it's resentment or jealousy, or, it could even be some people hold back love out of fear of releasing that, So, yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I'm sure there are people out there who can say, ooh, she did it, I can do it,
Right,
because it does take, it's work. Marriage is work, people. It's work. And it's not always fun work, but it's worth it. It's work that has worth.
Yeah, exactly.
And has value. And that's what we really love to bring out in these podcast shows, because there's so many people who are saying, well, you don't understand, or you're the only one. And there is many of us out there.
Right, yeah.
We just need to have a unified voice to speak together and say, you can do this and it can work.
Yeah.
Find that person, but find that person in the right, healthy way also. They might be fun like Todd. Hey, you want to marry me off the radio? Or they may be
I want to say something real quickly. I mean, you guys have been together for over 40 years. We've been together for over 30 years. And I mean, we're anomalies in today's world. I think, and I kind of make fun of this, but it's not funny. It's like people treat marriage as like a 5-year renewable lease. It's like, let's see where we're at after 5 years. And then, it's so easy for them to just go, well, let's just get divorced. When, you're making this covenant under God, until death do us part. But then it's like, well, did you actually make a commitment? And, I went into this marriage, as I know she did, like this, we're going to do this, not like, oh, we're going to try this out for 3 years and then we'll see if we still like each other. And so during those challenges, and we had some very rough challenges in our marriage. But in the end, like we wanted to love each other and be together and have a family that was a great example of like, this is what a real family is. Like, we're together until we die. And I think that for the listeners, if you're listening or watching, you got to think, okay, what commitment did you make? Nobody said it was going to be easy. You've got to learn how to get past the things. Now, I get it. If somebody's beating on somebody else or physical physical or real emotional abuse. There are certainly situations where a marriage may not be able to last, but in a lot of situations, people just give up, and they give up way too early. And it's so damaging, especially when there's children. The kids get the brunt of it. I mean, it's financially devastating for the parents, but it's also, emotionally devastating for the children. And so I just think you got to make a decision and go, okay, let's figure out how to work past this. And what's crazy is even though Carla and I have had struggles in our relationship, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I already know this. Our relationship today is better than it's ever been on every level. We're we love each other. We love hanging out with each other. And, I'm not sick of you. Are you sick of me, baby? I mean, I love hanging out with you.
Todd,
it's amazing.
Todd, you're onto something. It's so powerful to hear you say that, because the reality is, get through the stuff. There's plenty of it. But on the other side, it's what you're talking about right now. And it's really unfortunate that so many marriages and so many couples do not get past the drama so that they can have this sort of Garden of Eden experience.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah, it's like when you're saying your vows, it shouldn't even be for better or for worse. It should be for painful, for heartache, for hurt feelings, for everything that happens, which is the worst. But on the other side, for the best friendship you ever had, for the best marriage you ever, for the love of your life. Because the love of my life, that's actually now when I answer the phone, I say, hey, love of my life. But I didn't say that when we first got married. I was like, oh, he's my husband. No, this is the love of my life, But you can't appreciate that unless you go through all the stuff.
Yeah.
You got to get through the stuff. And it's okay to get through it, because you're going to go through it. You're not going to go around it. You're going to go through it. You just have to have that life vest on, which could be therapy. You have to have the oars in the water, which could be support groups, but you can get through it.
Yeah.
And again, we totally agree. I mean, if you're being abused physically or
Right.
mentally, that's not safe. That's not healthy. But most, like you said, most marriages they take a check.
Yeah.
You still like me? No. Okay, let's get a divorce. It's sad.
Well, people can say what they want, but the thing I'm hearing too, though, is, Todd, you have been a real man, okay? A real husband, a real father. There's something to be said for that in this country.
Yeah.
And
Masculinity.
Let me tell you something. It's a very real thing about having dad in the home. Daddy's home, okay? How many times was he out there flying around and on stages and in planes and off planes and in limos and whatever, and the boys might have been cutting up, but you said,
Daddy's coming home.
Daddy's coming home. Let's talk about that. Share on that,
Daddy's
Carla.
home.
Yeah, well, there is something to that that's very important. The boys know, Todd is the father. He is the leader of our pack, right? And they see us talking together, but they know that, I don't know how to say it. Todd is the decision maker. I make decisions too, but I really honor his role as being the father and being the man. And we all do. The boys do.
Carla, what's beautiful about that is that they will then do that too, because they don't know different, and you have to have a final say. We as wives are helpmate.
Yeah.
There's things that these guys need help with. They're not the emotional empaths that we are. And that's okay, because we don't really want them to be that. But they know our worth, and they know how to receive from us so that they can be even more profound in certain areas in life that maybe they're not. But we, as the wife, are always receiving from them, because that's their role. Their role is to always take care of. We have the opportunity to pour into them and help them, but they are the take care of, so beautiful.
Yeah. So back to really quick that when you're in the weeds, when you're in that struggle, and you don't just normally get one struggle, right? There's numerous struggles over the years. And there have been times where I've thought, I don't like him. I don't want to be around him. I don't like him. In those dark places. What helped me was really peeling back the anger or the hurt or the frustration and looking at Todd and looking at our relationship and saying, but how do I really feel about him? Okay, I don't like him right now. He was a jerk. But do I love him? Yeah, I love him. And that has always been an anchor for me in those hard times. I love him, and I know I love him. So I knew that, and I've known that I have to just figure out how to get through that rough patch, and things will be better.
Yeah, that's so good. What's interesting is when we were working with the youth, we'd get these little girls, these teenagers, these young adults who would say, I just love him. I'm like, no, that's not a good reason to be with somebody, because you're supposed to love him. So what? We're going to get engaged. Why? Because I love him. What else? Nothing. Oh, you better have a whole lot more. Because, like you just said, the love is the base. That's the base. Now, there's going to be times when I don't like you and I don't feel this, but the love is the base. You know,
Yeah.
you don't get married just for love, because I can love you and hate you at the same, and not want to live with you at the same time, you know, but it is the base.
Right.
Because when you start, you're starting with the love, and then you got to build on that. So you better find something else to build on, because the love is the foundation. Now you got to build the walls,
Right.
you know, and the doors and everything else. So the house.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've been going through a great interview with Todd and Carla, talking about the stages of life and love and family and so forth. And so stay tuned for part number 2, which is going to be equally as thrilling. We look forward to speaking with you soon.
So we'll be back on Get It Together
Yes.
with Todd and Carla. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.